I'm Joyce Hornady. You might say accuracy is my business. I make bullets.
You are listening to the Hornady Podcast.
Thanks for joining us and enjoy the show.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Hornady Podcast. I'm your host, Seth Swerzik, and today, a full table in the studio to talk new products for 2025. Specifically, I got the team for Backcountry Defense. To my left, Assistant Director of Engineering, Joe Thielen. We got Senior Ballistician, Jayden Quinlan, and we got the one in which we trust, Miles Neville. Guys, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me back.
All right, so we talked about 2025 new products. There's a bunch of podcast content coming out today, and a lot of this kind of evergreen. It'll be out there indefinitely, and people can consume this whenever. But right now, it's a pretty exciting time because we're announcing these products to the world. And one that we're obviously excited about, a brand new line of pistol ammunition that includes a brand new bullet design by one Miles. So that's a Backcountry Defense. And before we get into how that bullet was developed and the research process that went into that, along with the cartridge and bullet weights, we really need to address who this is for and why it's even necessary. And I feel like today, in 2024, 2025 timeframe, it's never been more necessary to have ammo like Backcountry Defense. When you look at one, mapping services like Onyx Hunt Maps, for example, they have made it so much more easy to navigate accessing super remote areas of the backcountry. You just simply couldn't access some of those areas without, if I drive here, hike over here, then I can jump onto the BLM, and then now I'm 7 miles back, where you just couldn't put that all together if it really wasn't as convenient as a mapping service. So you got more people using mapping services like that, getting access to these remote areas, which is great. Then you have kind of a social media craze where everybody's on social media, everybody's plugged in and influenced by this stuff, and there's more people pushing it in social media that it's cool to be in the backcountry, because it is. It's a lot of fun, whether you're hunting or just going out to enjoy the lands that you have access to. There's that aspect to it of it. And there's also, within that social media influencer kind of thing, there's also a fitness aspect to the backcountry hunter or the backcountry outdoor enthusiast, right? So there's those kind of things driving more people into those areas. And then you compound that with areas like Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, now Washington, that are having unregulated, unhunted grizzly bear populations that are not afraid of you and are certainly the apex predator in the area.
I might be afraid of Jayden.
Well, I mean, that's pretty standard.
I'm a teddy bear.
That's not true
They
at
can't
all.
be afraid of their own kind.
Yeah. Right. Well, Jayden, when he came out of the womb, he actually gave his dad the talk.
Is that what it was?
But so you have these unregulated, unhunted grizzly bear populations. Throw in some wolves and some mountain lions, and more people in these backcountry areas, coupled with more apex predators in these backcountry
More animals,
areas.
period. Yep.
You have a recipe of critical encounters are going to occur at a higher rate.
Yep.
And you need to have a sidearm on you in those situations, whether you're bow hunting, rifle hunting, or just hiking and sightseeing. It's a responsible thing to do to have a reliable sidearm that you train with. And sometimes 911's not going to work, and you need a bullet that you know is going to get through the skull of a grizzly bear. To quote one of my good friends up in Montana, in the heart of grizzly bear country, grizzly bears don't charge sideways. And if you have to take one point blank through the skull, you need a bullet to do it. And setting the stage there, let's talk about Backcountry Defense. And I'd really like to start to hear your guys' thoughts on the development and the why. And we need to get into the new bullet, the DGH bullet, the Dangerous Game Handgun bullet, how it performs, and what that really looks like.
Well, the development part, I guess I could speak to that of the why.
Yeah.
The why is a good friend of ours in the industry, obviously there, we'll call him Greg. And we're having a conversation about, hey, I know people that have been in these situations. Here's the deficiencies that exist with current products. do you think you could do anything to improve this? The answer was yes.
Of course. It's what we do.
That's what we exactly. That's what we do. So we go back, go to work on bullets, cartridges, what they need to be, what they performance, all that envelopes, if you will, lay the parameters and develop backcountry defense ammo. That's the why. We got to ask, can we help out? And
that's a great point, Joe. And historically, when you look at it, we didn't have an answer. We have Handgun Hunter, our monolithic bullet. We have our XTPs. We've got Critical Duty, which are good solutions, but maybe not great solutions to the problem of dangerous game encounters in the backcountry. And the historical solution for a lot of folks has been hard cast lead.
Yep.
What are some of the deficiencies there?
Go ahead, Q.
All right, you can go ahead.
The lead bullets in general, when you shoot those in your barrel and you get the lead, I'm going to call it lead smoke, if you will. It's lead dust. And you got a light on there, low light, whatever. Follow-up shots and seeing what you're doing right in front of you can be inhibited. So that's why you wrap a jacket, wrap a heavy jacket. Yep. And then you really have no other, you have a lead hard projectile. This way we got copper and lead. So super reliable feeding.
That was a good question, or a question that I had was, historically running hard cast lead, we're talking 13, 14, 15% antimony lead. What did the shapes look like historically? Obviously in a wheel gun, it really doesn't matter. But I feel like there's a lot of people, at least in, kind of our age group, carrying a 10 millimeter.
Absolutely.
So what were the historical limitations on lead shape? Did they run, kind of a conical type?
Well, to get a rounded ogive with a flat point.
But it's a big flat point.
Yeah, for the most part.
Okay.
What you run into with a lot of that stuff.
Yep. And we saw, obviously, everybody going heavy because it's lead. So you're going to get a really heavy bullet. But with the lead smoke, the slower follow-up shots, maybe not feeding so great.
Lead fouling.
Lead fouling
in your barrel. Yep. Training
is the big issue I have with it. And I'm sure we'll get to the topic of the cartridges that are in this line and why some of them are there when a lot of people will say, well, that's not a bear defense cartridge. You know? To me, training is critical and it's overlooked in many cases because in my personal experiences in a life-threatening environment, you're not as good as you think you are.
Nope.
And so having the ability, like if you're serious about it, having the ability to train with the ammunition that you're also going to carry is a huge deal. And not having to go buy, train with some FMJ load and then go buy a hard cast box and maybe shoot 10 of them and then keep 10 of them loaded or whatever. The difference in that versus being able to take the stuff you're going to carry and train with that specifically so that you understand what your capabilities are.
Yep.
When you're measuring your lifespan in seconds at that point, there's a very critical difference there.
Yeah, 100%. And that's, you have to find out, or you'd hate to find out in that instance that, wow, I wish I would have trained more.
Yeah.
Because you
It's a little late then.
Yeah, you might not get the opportunity to have that thought.
Yep. Well, that's a great point and a great call to the listener to go train. I mean, there's so many new pistol owners, certainly through COVID, that bought new pistols. Well, don't let them sit and collect dust. Get out there, get shooting. One, it's fun, and two, the classic saying is you never rise to the occasion. Never do. You only fall back to your highest level of competency. And if you are well trained, your competency level just flat increases. And yeah, if you get no seconds flat and you have to produce a pistol in defense of your life in the backcountry from a grizzly bear charge or something, you want to be able to execute those mechanics with fluidity and smoothness and confidence, really.
And let's face it, handguns take more practice and training to be proficient with them, just by the nature of them.
It's a perishable skill.
Like you can't just reach some high level of proficiency and then you're good. It's not riding a bike. Like you have to maintain that.
I liken it to reading the wind. That's a perishable skill.
Yeah.
Like, I always have some base level of reading the wind just from years of doing it. But when I'm dialed in, it's way better and way more accurate and way more consistent. Same thing with the pistol. I think all of us here have shot enough of a pistol, formal and informal instruction and competition levels and such, that, we always have a base level of proficiency. But when you're really training, you're really dialed in, it's just different.
You give me an expert pistol shooter and you hand them a rifle, almost guaranteed to be an expert rifle shooter. You take the best rifle shooter, flip of a coin. If they've never touched a pistol before, whether or not they'll execute the fundamentals and whatever. It's a whole different ballgame.
Out here, you may only get one chance. So never compromise. At any distance. Match accurate ELDX bullets, highest BCs, flat trajectories, and unparalleled terminal performance at all practical ranges. Precision Hunter ammunition from Hornady.
Yeah, excellent. So that's definitely a why, and I'd really like to dive in now to that DGH bullet, because that's the heart. That is the line. Backcountry Defense, okay, it's got case, it's got powder, it's got primer, and a box that it comes in. Well, that's just like everything else. But what makes this different is the DGH bullet. So lay out exactly what the goal was. Obviously, you need straight line penetration. But what was the thought process to go with jacketed, and what's the expansion and deflection look like for something that's this heavy and jacketed?
Yeah, so we've got a pretty thick jacket on those, a tough jacket, and then we basically 4 caliber made them on the heavier end. It might not be the heaviest bullet that you're ever going to get per caliber, but we made them on the heavier end for sure.
And velocity plays into that, because you don't get energy without squaring the velocity numbers. Right. You don't want to make them too heavy.
Right. But yeah, typically what you see, so expansion is nice. Expansion also puts a big parachute on the front of the bullet. And so for this, we were looking to replicate basically what those hard cast loads do, and that's get ultimate penetration. So we have the jacket basically comes up. The stuff for wheel guns will have a canneler on that, and that canneler will help lock the lead core to the jacket as well. They all have an interlock ring down in there that you see in a lot of other bullet lines. And then the jacket rolls up and it actually curls in and hooks into the lead on the nose. So because that protected point is really what makes this possible. It is
an antimony lead core, although not 15%.
Right.
It is an antimony lead core, so it is tough. But to get that maximum penetration, you have to limit expansion. And in this case, these don't really expand at all.
No. You'll get some, setback on the nose, a little bit of flattening, but minimal.
Yeah.
And it looks like a hollow point there, but when that jacket rolls around and curls into the lead, that it crimps itself in. And in testing, I don't think we've had, other than shooting like glass or something, we've not had any of them come apart. And so or even setback or open or really do anything. We're getting in like a 44 Magnum, like 45 plus inches of penetration in ordnance gel.
That's you don't measure that in inches, you measure that in feet.
Right.
Yeah. That's really impressive.
So, and on the small side, 9 millimeters are getting over 20 inches of penetration.
Wow.
10 millimeter, it just scales in between there basically.
Right.
So roughly 2 to 4 feet of penetration in ballistics gel.
So that protected point, that's, when you look at it, just as the casual user sees that bullet, okay, but that looks really close to just a jacketed hollow point.
Right.
Did you just simply draw the jacket longer and then use a profile die to just roll that over?
Exactly, yep. So the pinch trim jacket is longer than what we would traditionally do for like an XTP or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just roll that material in, and then we have a forming process that pushes it back up into the lead core.
Wow.
And then they all kind of come together there. So looks like a hollow point, will not expand.
Will not expand. And I think that's key, that one, you're not getting the expansion and the deflection. And part of your penetration has to be that it's not expanding, because if it expanded, it's going to find the path of least resistance. It's not going to go straight.
Right. Yeah. And when you expand, if you don't design it to expand uniformly, then you'll get tumbling and crazy weird yaw.
Yeah, that's what I admit.
And then also expansion that is uniform or not creates more frontal surface area, and you really limit penetration. And so when you go looking at the anatomy of those animals coming at you, generally it's accepted that you want as much penetration as you can get to get through whatever angle that they're coming at you. Front to back is usually the worst to get to vitals, or in some case, like if you want to get through the skull, like you want the bullet to hold together and have that. And also we've got copper wrapped around the back. So like what Joe was saying, there's no lead exposure on the back end. So nighttime, like especially handguns, if you shoot exposed lead bullets at night with a flashlight, the smoke comes up and obscures your vision.
I actually had this question, and I'd like to hear you answer it, but someone asked, well, why don't you encapsulate the bullet so that there's no exposed lead in the front? And then I explained, well, then you'd have exposed lead at the back. You kind of touched on that.
Right, yeah. You have an FMJ, like a traditional FMJ construction for handgun is that way. It's got exposed lead in the back.
Mm-hmm. That's a good answer, though. And I think if you are shooting heavy for caliber at high velocity and you have that exposed lead base, I would have to think you hit something hard enough, you're going to squirt some lead out the back.
Right.
You can do that.
Yeah, you definitely will.
Yeah, which obviously a problem.
Yeah, exactly. You deform the bullet and it'll squish in and make some funky shape and then start yawing and tumbling and coming apart, squeezing apart in the gel or the animal.
So the DGH, again, the heart of the Backcountry Defense lineup as a whole, the product line revolves around that bullet. And as it were, the development of that bullet actually didn't take quite as long. I mean, your first kind of initial design really worked well. And I remember seeing one of the first ones you shot in gel out of a full house 454 Casull at point blank, went 46 inches into gel, and the bullet looked identical to right before you shot it, except for it had rifling marks on it.
Yeah. And like I said, you can see when you get the before and after a little bit of setback in the ogive, but yeah, nothing major. And actually, I think you saw version 2 or 3, so there were a couple of things we played with prior to that.
Okay.
It was once we got onto the design that we're running with now. Yeah, it was pretty easy to implement.
Yeah, so by protected point plus the introduction of the interlock ring, which is a feature you'll find in our rifle line of bullets and in our critical duty, you really have the most rugged jacketed bullet out there. So you reduce the lead smoke, but more importantly, I think we make jacketed bullets because they're accurate.
Yeah.
You don't even have to try, and you make pistol bullets, true cup and core swedged bullets in one process, start to finish. That bullet is accurate. It's impossible to create inaccurate pistol bullets when you use that same manufacturing process that we make our match bullets, our match rifle bullets out of.
Yep.
I think that's big. And did you have any trouble? You mentioned that jacket, incredibly thick, and we know that a concentric bullet shoots well. Any trouble drawing that jacket to keep concentricity, to keep the accuracy up?
No. I mean, it's the same thing that we're doing with SSTs and ELDXs and a couple other bullets that we make. So that's pretty standard. And these draws aren't as long. The diameter to length ratio, I mean, these are pretty. Handgun bullets are always easier to make.
Right. Yeah, easier to make. Super accurate, especially at the distances you're shooting.
Right.
Pistols, right?
Yep. And the other thing is we incorporated a lot of ogive shapes that we know are tried and true ogive shapes. That don't have any sharp corners, no rounded stuff, or all the intersections are tangent, rounded intersections, so that feeding is going to be not
super reliable.
And that's the other issue with like a lot of the exposed lead stuff is easy to deform and mash and whatever. Like you're not going to get any of that.
Right on. Well, there's a couple cartridges specifically I want to talk about. I'm going to mention all of them here, and I'm going to pull out some. So we're going to go from the smallest to the largest. We've got a 9mm, a 357 Magnum, 10mm, 44 mag, 454 Casull, and then the 460 and the 500 Smith & Wesson. And a couple that I want to pull out, starting with the 9mm. Not the best, or certainly not the first cartridge to come to mind when I think Backcountry Defense.
Right.
What's the thought process of entering something in 9mm that's designed for those critical encounters in the backcountry?
There's so
it's better
many
than
of
a
them.
knife.
Well, there's just so
I make
many
light
of
of
them.
that, but any gun's better than. I mean, some people have them, right? That's what they have.
It's the most probably the most common carry caliber.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be carrying it and you're
that's
out
all
there,
you have. Put this ammo in it and take it.
And there's another aspect there with proficiency. We've talked in other podcasts that when it comes to terminal performance, when it comes to ethically and quickly harvesting an animal, whether you're out hunting or in like a life-threatening defensive situation in the backcountry, you're looking for the same thing, like immediate incapacitation, right? And the king of that is shot placement.
Yep.
Penetration and expansion and wound channel and all of that stuff is always secondary to shot placement. And the reason why is if you maximize all those other categories, but you put them in the wrong place, it doesn't matter. So the 9mm, I'm a proponent of, and I think you'll probably end up with two camps here, right? You'll have the guys that say, oh, it has to be big and heavy and penetrate 4 feet, to Miles's testing. I would say I fall more in the 9mm camp because I have spent so much time behind that system that I know when my hands go numb and I can't see very well, my peripheral vision is gone, and there's
auditory exclusion, tunnel vision,
1,500-pound monster coming at me that I stumbled on at dark, and my flashlight isn't working, whatever the worst circumstance is, right? That
dog ran away. I
can efficiently put bullets where I want them with that versus the 454 Casull that sits in my gun safe 99% of the time because going out and shooting it isn't the most pleasant thing. I don't train with it as often.
Right.
So I don't think either camp is wrong or either camp is right. I think it just depends on where you place your value in your capability at that moment under stress.
Yep.
And there's the whole, I can fit 19, 20 rounds into a 9mm versus 5, and some of those wheel guns. Yeah, those wheel guns. And
that's true. It's nice to have ammo on tap should you need it.
Right.
Yep. And like Jayden mentioned, there's probably a bunch of people, competitors, law enforcement, military, or just the general consumer that likes to go out and shoot, that they have a system that works. They have a pistol platform it's just an extension of their hand. And if you ask them their top 3 favorite pistols, it's Glock 19. Number 2 is a Glock 19, and their favorite is a Glock 19. Well, then, maybe you should consider using something like that.
Right.
So that makes a ton of sense. And the 9mm 138 grain bullet, which is not the heaviest, but that's one of those where you run into, if you make it too big, you're not going to get very much velocity and energy out of there. And so you need to find the balance point to really drive that bullet home.
Yep. Got to leave room for powder.
Ah, yes, powder.
But you did a good job, Miles, of the L over Ds, right? So the penetration of a 9mm is still more than sufficient because, it only weighs 138 grains, but it's nice and long, heavy jacket, a lot of copper in it, so the bullet's longer, so it penetrates well.
Yep.
So
and they're moving fast.
They're moving,
like you said, you gave plenty of room for powder. When I first got those 138 grain samples to start doing some internal ballistic work with, I was surprised at how fast we could get them going within the pressure limits. Mainly that was because in Miles's design, the bearing surface length is short enough that it left enough case volume that we could get the charge weights to a point where you have very efficient velocities.
Well done. Yeah, it's important. And so this is 9mm Luger plus P, of course, but one of the big differences here, when you look at some of the available ammo that's hard cast, some of that stuff, you put it in a pressure velocity barrel, it's like plus P plus plus.
Yeah. Your Glock 19 might turn into, Glock something else.
Yeah. Right. So thanks for walking us through 9mm.
You can have access to the Hornady Handbook of Cartridge Reloading at your fingertips wherever you are with the Hornady Reloading Guide app available for iPhone and Android. Check it out today.
I'm going to jump now to what I really think is going to be the number one selling SKU in this lineup. Now, 9mm might give it a run for the money simply because the amount of 9mm pistol owners.
Right.
But I think for the actual person in the arena, in the backcountry, with the sidearm on them, I think it's going to be that 10mm offering.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, I think everywhere you look, I think it's the debate is 44 Magnum or 10mm.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you got more 10mm guys out there.
Miles, I want to hear, since we trust in you, what's the Miles camp say? You running 44 Magnus or you going 10mm?
Yeah, I'd probably do 10mm. I'm kind of the camp that more shots is more better.
Yeah.
In that sort of more fast shots is probably going to do you better than fewer that are hitting a little harder.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I know you're shooting all the time. I would dare to say you have way more training behind your precision rifle than you do a 44 mag wheel gun.
Yeah.
And you have way more time behind
semi-auto handguns.
Your semi-automatic handguns.
Yeah. That's what I shoot all the time if I'm going to shoot a handgun.
Yep.
That's kind of.
What'd you select for bullet weight on that 10mm?
It's 200 grains.
Okay, kind of a staple bullet weight in the 10mm lineup.
Yep.
And then going to load this one up right up to, everything we can get
Right.
out of a 10 millimeter.
Yeah, they're loaded to give you the most velocity we can at a standardized pressure. So again, you can train with this ammo. It's not going to do undue wear to your system and shorten the life of your handgun. You can train with it, and you're also getting great performance with it.
Right on.
I think the question that should be asked is, what is the ultimate solution? And that would be, I think one of our early podcasts was with Mike Jensen, better known as Whitey.
Yeah.
The ultimate solution would be to have Whitey just hang out with you in the backcountry with his 454 Cazul, because he's like a incredibly accomplished handgun hunter.
He
And
is.
the shots that guy can make with
And
a
his
454
hands.
Cazul. Yeah.
It's there. He's got paws.
If he was the size of a Glock 19, I would just carry him.
Just
on my
carry
hip.
him.
Yeah. Let's see your concealed carry, Whitey.
Yeah.
On a unrelated but semi-related note, for those listeners that know about Mike Whitey Jensen, or anybody that's come to Dallas Safari Club show, Whitey's always there with us. Whitey just returned days ago. The racks are still on his roof from an Alaska adventure with one of his sons, Jeremiah. They drove up to Alaska. They had an epic horseback adventure, and they both knocked down fantastic trophy moose. And Mike did it with his 475 line ball.
Nice.
Yeah, Freedom Arms cylinder that he chambered himself, and laid him down with the old line ball.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's pretty impressive. Yeah, big moose in and of itself, and then to do it with
With
a
a
handgun
handgun is
yeah,
super
He
cool.
does everything
Cool
with a
story.
handgun. Yeah, I think a grizzle bear is on the menu next year.
That's what
We
it
can
sounded
go back
like.
to that same neck of the woods.
Cool.
Yeah. So now, going from 10 millimeter, which, like I said, I think that is going to be the skew to beat if we were just measuring things on sales volume. 9's going to be up there, but man, I really think that 10 millimeter for the guys actually out there where these, grizzly bears and other, wolves and stuff like that, where that's a concern, I really think that 10 millimeter is going to be a big one. But I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up the 44 Magnum. Now, the 44 Mag, I think is, historically that was all the minimum medicine for, brown bear defense. And that may be true. I don't know. But in the last 10 years, you've seen, I think, a shift. And it could be just because of people aging out of hunting remote and new groups aging into being able to hunt remote. And it's just a different strokes for different generations, I guess. And you're seeing more semi-automatic pistols. But the 44 Magnum, in you name it, I mean, scandium frames or 4-inch barrels or shorter, a staple for the backcountry hunter sidearm. And I think this one's going to be a great fit. What'd you go with for a bullet on this?
This one's a 240 grain.
Again, yeah, you can't get more classic than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could have gone heavier, of
Right.
course, but same thing.
When it's going 46 inches into gel, I think.
Yeah. Proof's in the pudding, or in
Yeah.
the gel in this
I
case.
mean,
Yeah.
6 feet would have been nice, but
Yeah.
Yeah. Then you could have gone nose to tail on some bears.
Right.
Black bears. That's wild when you think about it. You're not far off from that.
I mean, that is when you got to get 3 rifle blocks lined up to catch the bullet. Yeah, we don't do that often.
No. Well, we do got a full lineup, the 240 grain and the 44 mag. That's also going to be incredibly popular for good reason. There's a ton of 44s out there. And for me personally, I've got a gimp thumb from a surgery I had years ago. I can't shoot big revolvers or big handguns very well because I don't have the grip strength here. And so the 44 mag for me is the highest thing, the heaviest recoiling handgun cartridge that I can shoot comfortably. Anything north of that, and this thumb, I'm liable to wear that thing right between my eyeballs. So the 44 mag for me is top end.
Not because of physical limitations, but just from a shooting standpoint. I'll practice with a 44 Magnum, and when you go much bigger than that, and it gets not fun in a hurry.
Yeah,
So it does.
Yeah, but there's some gluttons for punishment out there.
There's
Whitey
people
being
that
one
love
of
it.
them.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm
guy-
not one of them.
The guy I bought my first gun from, the official, I actually bought my own gun kind of deal, Bunky. I know you know him from back in our hometown. Bunky's got hands like I've never seen.
like the bear that's charging him.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So, he might just slap it in the face. I don't know. But I know he's a big fan of shooting those big revolver cartridges, too. And if you can handle it and you can shoot those well, then, again, we got the 44, the 454 Cazul, the 460 Smith, and then the 500 Smith, which I'm not sure is being fielded as much anymore, but they're out there,
Sure,
so
they're
we're
out
going to
there.
have something for them. But I really think between 9, 10, 44, and if you're into those other cartridges,
Yeah.
then we have an option for you. You don't have to go hard cast lead anymore. You have a legitimate, accurate, reliable cup and core jacketed bullet.
Absolutely.
SnapSafe modular assembly system locks the thick steel exterior together in minutes anywhere in the home. Featuring a pry-resistant 3/16-inch solid steel door, 8 1-inch chrome steel live locking bolts, digital or mechanical locking options, 9-gauge steel exterior walls, 2300 degree Fahrenheit 1-hour fire shield protection, fully adjustable shelving, and a lifetime warranty. SnapSafe, a modular safe with welded safe security.
Anybody got hunts lined up that they're going to be carrying Backcountry Defense? Anybody got any awesome elk, deer, any Alaska trips coming up?
I wish I did this year. We didn't draw anything. It was really a drought in the Thielen household.
Ugh.
I'm still kind of bitter about it.
Yeah, well, it's getting tougher and tougher. Unrelated to Backcountry Defense, but here in Nebraska, our deer numbers have been down, and they've restricted permit availability as they should. I'm very, very
Sure.
thankful, especially for the non-resident. And I was trying to line up a media guest to come out and hunt here in Nebraska, and there are no non-resident tags available for most of the state. There was a handful of unit-specific tags
Really?
left, but not
Wow.
not anywhere you could get into mule deer or the sandhills. So we weren't interested. But tags are getting harder to get everywhere.
They are.
And again, I think there's obviously deer numbers, mule deer numbers specifically, but the amount of people in the pool is getting pretty high too, which is kind of goes hand in hand with some of the reasons why we designed this line
Absolutely.
of ammunition anyway. More popular, more people doing it, more people getting into more remote areas.
Which is great, though, for the industry,
It's
right?
great.
I'm so
Yeah.
glad to see younger people getting involved in hunting. I mean, it's just great.
Yep.
That's-
Yep. So if nobody's going to use it this year, that's unfortunate. I wish I was daydreaming like, man, maybe I should go to Alaska. I've never been. I've heard it's fantastic, but if I do, when I do, I'll be carrying Backcountry Defense.
Absolutely.
I'll have some in my Glock this summer in Colorado.
Okay.
We'll be
Sure,
out,
when you're
out hiking around. I've got 3 little girls, so my job to make sure nothing happens to them.
Exactly. Here's a question that you saying that just brought to my mind. Now, it's not uncommon for a dangerous game hunter in the pursuit of dangerous game, say in Africa, to stack their mag with a solid and an expanding, and a solid and an expanding. Is that something that you guys would consider or think is a good practice for not necessarily purposefully pursuing the big game, but in the defense of those dangerous game animals? Would you ever stack a mag with, say, backcountry defense and critical duty, or an XTP, something like that? Do you see benefit to an expanding bullet to transfer energy and then follow that up, or send a solid first? How do you feel about that?
In this, for what the application we're talking about, no, I'd load my mag full up.
Yeah, if my main concern was bears, it would be straight backcountry defense.
Okay.
But mountain lion or wolf,
Yeah.
I might stack it.
Okay.
Because those animals are a lot smaller, right?
Yeah, they're not near
your
as dense.
depth to the vitals. Yes, a headshot on a charging animal, you still have that skull bone that's, you need to be able to get through that, and that's hard to do sometimes because it's hung out off of a spine, so it can rotate in all those different dimensions, and then it's rounded, so it's easy for a bullet to deflect. So
And it's hard to hit when you're shaking like a leaf, one hand in a gun as you're running for your life.
right, but yeah, I might combine different ammo types in those circumstances. But I think for brown bear, no, I think you want that and just that.
The smaller stuff, 9mm, 10mm, maybe I could see it. Critical duty is still a pretty tough bullet, but you'll get more penetration with the.
Yeah, that's a good point though, because you said in Colorado, which allegedly has no grizzly bear population at all. So for mountain lion, wolves, which is obviously a hot topic in that state, black bear, stuff like that. Maybe you don't need all that penetration. Maybe you need something that's going to dissipate energy a little bit quicker, limit your penetration, and you could supplement that with critical defense.
You know what'll be, talking about this though, I just thought of something. What'll be fun is if Mike Jensen does go hunting and he's got let's just say his first cylinder, or his first 2 cylinders with a XTP or a
Yeah, he's a historical
then
XTP fan.
But then after the first one up, because he's hunting, right? He's hunting brown bear, so he shoots one, and then his second, barrel going to be defense. It'll be fun to.
Right. We'll have to pick his brain about that and see what he thinks.
What his thoughts are.
Yeah,
but it gives those guys that are doing that option, right?
Right.
That one too.
Yep.
So
now, Whitey had a very significant hand in the development of the XTP bullet. So I understand if he's got some allegiance to XTPs.
100%.
Yeah,
And that's the thing too. Like a broadside shot on an animal,
it's totally different.
Is a different. When you picking and choosing, you got time. That's a different situation than something coming at you.
Then I don't have a choice.
Right.
Pull the trigger.
The amount of material you got to get through here is not
same.
completely different from front to back. Yeah.
Yep.
and you may have some application in Africa too. You know, I got to go once. Definitely didn't hunt any of the dangerous game species, but typically the PH has a rifle too in those dangerous game situations, and I'm sure some of those guys are very proficient with a handgun. I wonder if this won't give them a solution that they might not use as well.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or guides and up north. I don't know. Those I don't know those things, but
Yeah. Well, there's definitely plenty of application for it, again, with more people in those areas, more specifically brown bears, but other, kind of apex predators out there too. So great job with that DGH bullet. Again, the dangerous game handgun bullet, the heart of the Backcountry Defense line. Great job with the bullet weights, obviously, the penetration, no expansion, no deflection, and the key is straight line penetration, no banana-shaped trajectories. This thing is laser straight, and should you need it, you want something you can rely on, and I think you guys did a great job with the Backcountry Defense. So for all of us who might potentially need it sometime, thank you.
Yeah,
no problem.
Do you guys need anything else? The floor is yours for anything else Backcountry Defense.
Man, I don't know. I think we covered it pretty well.
Yeah.
We got her.
Obviously, if people have questions that, put them on there. We'll do our best.
Yeah, please. Listeners, obviously, podcast@hornady.com, or drop a comment if you're watching this on YouTube. Love to interact with you guys. And if you do have legitimate questions, we want to get them answered, and you've got a direct line into us. So with that, gentlemen, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you for tuning into this episode of the Hornady podcast about the brand new pistol line of ammo for 2025, the Backcountry Defense. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll catch you on the next one.